If there were a prophecy that could change the fate of humanity, would you be willing to listen? The sad reality is that some truths are too heavy for most to believe, and some warnings too uncomfortable for many to hear. But when a man returns from death and declares that Jesus Christ revealed to him the secret of what's to come, can we afford to ignore it? A soldier wrote to us, recounting his near-death experience after he was killed in an attack. In that moment beyond life, he encountered the Lord Jesus in a sacred meeting. Jesus unveiled to him a series of astonishing visions, a divine warning about the year 2025. A war is coming, but not one fought with weapons. It will be waged within every thought, every decision, every heart. So what exactly did he see? Why is 2025 said to be so terrifying? And why have only a chosen few been allowed to know the truth? Pay close attention to this story, because it may forever change how you see the future. My name is Daniel Amber, a soldier who served 2 tours and endured nightmares that can never be erased. But nothing, not even the fiercest battles, could have prepared me for April 18th, 2024, the day I died and saw the future of 2025. I used to think near-death experiences were just fictional stories until death pulled me off the battlefield and placed me face to face with Jesus Christ. That morning, the Syrian sun scorched the desert, the dry air clinging to the skin like burning sand. I was leading a 6-man patrol outside a small village where intelligence had reported unusual electronic signals. The orders were clear: inspect, report, withdraw. But as my team advanced, a growing sense of unease gripped my chest. The village was eerily silent, as if life itself had been drained away. No children playing, no barking dogs, only cracked mud walls staring back at us. "Stay alert," I whispered, gripping my rifle tighter, scanning the rooftops. The pale blue sky held no clouds, but the wind had stopped, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. We moved in formation, our footsteps light like ghosts across the sand. I led the way, sweat trailing down under my helmet, heart pounding steadily but heavily. Then a sharp hiss sliced through the silence. Not loud, but enough to send a chill down my spine. I looked up and saw only the blinding sun, and then everything vanished. No pain, no sound. Just one moment I existed, and the next I didn't. I didn't fall. I didn't black out. I disappeared, as if my soul had been ripped from my body. Later, I would learn that a drone strike had obliterated our position, throwing my body over 30 feet. But at that moment, I only knew I was no longer in Syria, no longer at war. I awoke in a realm of radiant light, not sunlight, but revelation. As if every mystery in the universe had been laid bare. Before me stood Jesus Christ. His eyes pierced through every layer of armor I had ever built. He said, "Daniel, time is shorter than you think. I will show you 2025 so you can warn them." His words were fire. And in that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. Before we begin Daniel's story, if you find yourself wondering or uncertain about anything, simply type "I'm reflecting" in the comments. Our faith community may be able to help you find the answers. And remember, God is not offended by your questions. He is only grieved when we remain silent in the face of his warnings. The Eternal Bible Stories channel invites you to join our faith community by subscribing and leaving your name and city in the comments. We will lift your name up before the Lord in prayer as we walk this journey of faith together. If this story touches your heart, consider clicking the Super Thanks button, the heart icon below the video. Every contribution you make is a candle lighting the path so we can bring hope to thousands more. Let's discuss openly, learn from one another, and prepare for the days ahead, because this mission is not just for you, but for all of humanity. Now we invite you to listen to this soldier's story. The moment I left my body, I didn't realize I had died. It felt as though my soul had been pulled out of a dream filled with smoke and gunfire. 1 second, I was gripping my rifle, sweat pouring under the Syrian sun. Next, I was standing barefoot in a vast field, no horizon, no sky, only a gentle light wrapping itself around me. The ground beneath my feet shimmered like pearls, rippling like a lake stirred by the faintest touch, yet solid, alive somehow, aware that I was there. I looked down and saw no armor, no helmet, just the bare essence of myself, lighter than I had ever felt. The space around me hummed not a sound, but a sensation as if every molecule was singing a holy song. Then I felt a presence behind me, not footsteps, not breathing, but pure power like fire that didn't burn, but melted every doubt I had ever carried. I turned and there he was, Jesus Christ, not the faded image from holy books, but the embodiment of holiness itself. So beautiful I wanted to fall to my knees just to keep from vanishing into awe. He stood tall, surpassing every human measure. His robe flowed like a silver river, shimmering with light, as if thousands of gems had been kissed by the sun. His hair, deep brown, glistened like threads of twilight, gently swaying though there was no wind. His face is something I can never forget, not beauty as the world knows it, but a harmony of power and compassion. His eyes, deep blue like the farthest ocean, held the universe within them, gentle like a mother's gaze, sharp like a sword slicing through all falsehood. A faint radiance flowed from him, not blinding, but warm like sunlight breaking through the forest at dawn. Every movement he made, whether a step or a tilt of his head, carried the rhythm of life itself, as though time and space bowed to his presence. I stood there, heart still, not from fear, but from knowing I was face to face with the Creator, clothed in human form. My soul trembled. It was as if every layer of armor I had ever built, my doubts, my battlefield pain, every moment I turned from faith shattered like glass. I wanted to speak, to ask where I was, but my throat was dry, and he seemed to have already read every thought inside me. He stepped forward, not in haste. Each step caused the field to ripple with waves of light, like water reflecting 1,000 stars. He didn't need to say much, but when his voice finally echoed, it was like thunder wrapped in tenderness vibrating through my bones. He called my name, Daniel, and never before had that name carried such weight, as though I had been named long before I was born. He revealed to me that my death was not an accident, but a door, an invitation to see what was coming in 2025. A year when the world would stand at a crossroads between light and darkness. Every word he spoke etched itself into my soul, not as a command, but as a calling that carried the weight of eternity. I felt small, unworthy, just a hardened soldier who had once doubted God during long nights on the battlefield. But his eyes did not judge. They lifted me, as if I had not been chosen for what I had done, but simply because of his love. The field around us began to move, like a massive sheet folding itself away, revealing a new realm behind it. And I knew from that moment on that what he was about to show me would change me forever. From the gentle light of the field, I was suddenly pulled into another realm, as if I was standing at the edge of heaven, looking down on the battlefield where I had just died. Below me, the attack unfolded in sharp detail, not as a memory, but as a vivid, chilling scene. A drone, sleek like a metallic phantom, glided through the sky unseen by human eyes, carrying death programmed from a room thousands of miles away. A button pressed, a code entered, and then fire erupted, consuming me in an instant, as if I had never existed. But what made my soul tremble wasn't the explosion, it was what happened afterward, hidden behind black smoke and falling ash. From the wreckage, dark figures slithered upward, not human, not beast, but distorted entities that crept between corpses as if harvesting. They didn't attack. They simply reached out with shadowy arms, drawing in lost souls, those who died without the light to guide them. I watched, heart clenched, as I recognized those souls. They were my comrades, the men I had shared tents with, laughed with through long nights. They cried out, not with words, but with regret, as if their anguish echoed the weight of wrong choices. Their souls were trapped in a thin veil, not rising to heaven, not falling into the abyss, but suspended in emptiness, imprisoned by pride and misguided purpose. I wanted to scream, to reach out and pull them back, but my body, or whatever was left of it, was motionless. I could only witness. Jesus stood beside me, his presence calm but bearing a sorrow so deep. He looked like a king watching his kingdom fracture. The light from his robe, shimmering like a silver river, illuminated the space, but it could not chase away the darkness clinging to those lost souls. His eyes, deep and piercing blue, gazed into mine, reading every question I hadn't yet spoken. Without a word, He made me understand these soldiers, though brave, had fought for the wrong kingdom, not a nation or ideology, but for purposes lacking the light of truth. I remembered the years I spent in the military, when I believed that war was about defending what was good, that every bullet I fired served justice. But now, standing before Jesus Christ, I saw more clearly the real war was never on the battlefield, it was in the heart, where truth and deception fight for dominion. The souls that were trapped didn't die because they lost a battle, they died because they lived without ever knowing the kingdom of God, where only truth brings eternal meaning. His presence was like a gentle flame, burning away every falsehood inside me. I felt ashamed not for having fought, but for ever thinking that human strength alone could define victory. My soul trembled, as if it was being called by name for the first time, and I realized that my death wasn't random. It was a doorway, a passage to a greater truth. A spiritual war was coming, and truth would be the only weapon. The space around us shifted, as if time itself was folding to make way for a new vision. Jesus lifted his hand, and a door appeared, not made of matter, but of light and memory, like a promise of what was about to be revealed. I felt the weight of the mission he was placing upon me, not heavy, but burning like a fire that would never go out. The year 2025, he let me understand, would be the final battleground, where the world must choose between truth and deception. I stepped toward the door, heart pounding, not from fear, but because I knew I had been chosen, not because I was worthy, but because of his love. The field of light faded behind me, but the image of the lost souls haunted me, a warning that I must speak, must fight not with weapons, but with truth. Jesus didn't need to say another word. His eyes, deep, unwavering, had already given me everything I needed to move forward. It stood before me not as an object, but as a revelation. This door was unlike anything constructed by human hands. It was not made of wood, stone, or steel. It had no hinges, no handle, no frame. It hovered in the vastness of a timeless space, suspended between light and shadow, and yet it pulsed with something deeper, something personal. When I looked closer, I realized it was woven not from elements of this world, but from the very fabric of my life. The surface of the door shimmered like ripples across a quiet lake. Within each ripple lay a memory, clear, unfiltered, a clenched jaw in a moment of anger, a small, seemingly harmless lie whispered to avoid conflict, a lonely night when I cried in silence, wondering if God was truly listening. The door held all of it. Every choice, every moment of surrender or rebellion, each regret and every spark of hope. I saw it etched in light and motion on the door's surface. But this was no ordinary reflection. It did not return to me my face or my body. It showed me something far more terrifying and sacred, my soul, bare, exposed, unmasked. I saw things I had buried, things I had forgotten, and things I had never dared face. This door did not judge. It simply revealed. And in its revelation, I could not escape the truth. Jesus was beside me, silent, radiant. The light that radiated from him seemed to unsettle the darkness clinging to the door's edges. His presence didn't dominate the moment. It dignified it. He didn't even need to look at the door. He looked only at me. His gaze held no condemnation, yet there was gravity in it, a weight that could not be ignored. He didn't need to say much, but he did say this: "You must pass through. Only what is eternal can enter." And I understood. Not with my mind, but with my spirit. I moved forward. There was no sound. No angelic choruses, no celestial trumpets. Only a silence that was sacred, thick and holy, a silence that hushed even my thoughts. As I stepped closer, I felt something begin to shed from me. It wasn't my flesh. It was everything I had once believed defined me. Pride slipped away first, like a cloak falling from my shoulders. Shame cracked and crumbled like dry clay. The invisible medals I'd clung to, the status, the bravado, the identities I wore like armor, rusted and dropped off in silence. Even guilt and self-condemnation, those twin voices that had echoed in me for years, lost their grip and disappeared. Before this door, nothing could hide. But strangely, I was not afraid. And then I was drawn not by my will, but by something greater into the threshold. I didn't step into the light. The light welcomed me. But this was no ordinary radiance. It was not empty brilliance. It was a living light, It moved. It breathed. It sang not in words, but in prayers. I heard a symphony of voices, layered over centuries, layered with faith. I could taste the light of purity like clean rain and the sweetness of untainted memory. It enveloped me like warmth from a home I had long forgotten. Beyond the door, I saw them. They weren't people, and yet they were more than angels. These were presences wrapped in a sacred dignity. Their forms shimmered with timelessness, and though I couldn't name them, I knew who they were. They were the witnesses, the silent faithful, the ones who had died in obscurity, clinging to belief when the world mocked them. Martyrs, intercessors, saints no church had ever canonized, but heaven had never forgotten. They did not speak much. Words were unnecessary here, but their eyes, if I can call them that, acknowledged me. They knew I had come. One nodded with solemn urgency and placed a hand over where his heart might have been. His voice was barely a whisper, yet it shook me. Tell them, Daniel, time is not what they think it is. Another, his face like a painting smoldering with heavenly fire, spoke softly, but his voice echoed like thunder. The year 2025 begins the birth pangs that Revelation foretold. My knees nearly gave way. I turned toward Jesus, shaken. I wanted to ask what will happen in 2025, but I didn't need to. He didn't answer with a speech. He didn't need to. He simply raised his hand. And the sky tore open. Not like a crack or a hole, but like a great curtain being drawn back to expose a stage the world wasn't ready to see. What I witnessed cannot fully be described. They were not images. They were truths. Truths the earth had long denied. Visions of what would come, wars not just of nations, but of spirits. Famines not just of bread, but of hope. Fires not just in forests, but in hearts. And something deeper, more devastating, a great deception sweeping over souls. I could not bear it long, but I didn't need to. In that moment I understood my calling. I had seen enough. And I knew I had to return. Not because I wanted to, but because I had been entrusted with a message, a warning, a truth that could not be buried. I was not coming back the same. The judgment had not condemned me. It had awakened me. Now it was my turn to speak, not with authority, but with the trembling reverence of a man who had seen what few are ever permitted to see. And my door closed behind me as the mission began. As I stepped through the living door, time dissolved. It was no longer the flowing stream I once knew on earth. The space around me pulsed not with silence, but with an invisible symphony where every beat was the focused awareness of Italfanleso. I felt the presence of God not through light or sound, but through the deep awareness that everything here was alive, everything here knew me, and everything belonged to a plan far greater than I could comprehend. I looked down and was startled to see that I no longer bore the shape of flesh. I had become a refined essence, woven from light and thought itself, as though my soul had finally been freed to become its true form. Every movement I made was weightless, gliding like a breeze across water, yet purposeful, anchored in eternal truth. There was no earth, no sky, only a blurred horizon emitting a gentle radiance that made each breath, though I no longer breathed, feel like an act of worship. Far in the distance, strands of golden light drifted through space, delicate as spider silk but radiant like shooting stars. They shimmered with emotion, joy, sorrow, desperate pleading, each thread seemingly a prayer that had never faded. I stood still, transfixed by their dance, feeling my spirit merge with the echo of generations past, voices still rising toward heaven. Then a structure appeared on the horizon, not a temple, but a sacred sanctuary, ancient and holy, with walls woven from living light, sparkling like pearls beneath a celestial sun. Its foundation resonated not with music, but with meaning itself, as though truth were singing a song only souls could hear. I felt myself drawn toward it, not by force, but by a deep sense of belonging, as if I had been born to arrive at this very place. The ground beneath me changed, becoming a field of brilliant white, without color or texture, yet alive, rippling like silk water beneath each step I took. Then an angel appeared, not in the form of man, nor flame, but as pure power embodied, towering and magnificent. His eyes glowed like molten bronze, and his hair drifted as though submerged in an endless ocean. His robe shimmered with constellations, and his very presence was a declaration. The year 2025 had reached the edge of destiny. The angel did not speak, yet his thoughts echoed through my soul, declaring that I was not a mere observer, but a witness to a great shift. Behind him hovered a sword not held, but embedded in time itself, with lightning dancing along its blade, the symbol of an approaching separation. I could feel the weight of the mission, as if every step I took carried the echoes of generations yet to be born. The sanctuary blazed with light as I drew near. The air grew dense, not hot, not cold, but charged with spiritual pressure, the unmistakable presence of divine purpose. Another angel stood at the gate, smaller in form, more human-like, yet his eyes burned like fire flames of love and judgment interwoven. He touched my shoulder not heavily, but firmly, anchoring my soul as if affirming that I was chosen, not because I had died, but because of a decree written before I was ever born. The door of the sanctuary opened not by force, but by a wind laced with thunder, revealing a round chamber. Its walls were covered in living language: Hebrew, Aramaic, Latin, and other scripts I could not identify, each symbol flowing like rivers of light. At the center, on a pedestal made of living stone, rested a massive book not crafted of paper, but a substance shimmering like liquid glass. Each page vibrated with the heartbeat of humanity. Jesus appeared beside me without warning, his presence regal yet tender, like a king with the heart of a shepherd. He didn't speak many words. With a gentle touch, he placed his hand upon the book, and it opened on its own, revealing pages not filled with ink but alive words flowing, forming and reforming at the will of God. I saw the year 2025 unfold, not through images of leaders or wars, but through seemingly insignificant moments. A mother praying in the dead of night, her words erupting in firelight across the page, a teenager resisting temptation, illuminating a corner of the manuscript, a homeless man receiving kindness, and that act glowing like a gem. These small moments, quiet but mighty, were the decisions shaping the future. Then the page flickered and voids appeared, not blackness but hollowness, like holes born from prayers never spoken, love never given, forgiveness withheld. These gaps turned into shadows, creeping across the page like poisonous ink, opening gateways for deception to take root. My heart clenched with the realization that every missed decision was a door through which darkness could enter. Jesus placed his hand upon the page again, and light poured forth, pushing back the dark, reminding me that hope was not gone. I understood, then, the year 2025 was not the end, but the beginning of a new book, one where every small act of faith, kindness, and surrender would write the destiny of the days to come. The book closed, but my mission had become unmistakably clear. I was to remind the world that each day, every decision, is a stroke of ink on the eternal page. As the book of earth closed, the sacred sanctuary trembled not with fear, but with the breath of eternity preparing to unveil a profound revelation. Light surged forth, not as mere illumination, but as a living presence so potent that the stars above seemed to pause, bowing in reverence. From this radiant brilliance emerged Jesus, not as the gentle shepherd or the crucified Savior, but as the glorious King, exuding an authority that made my soul quiver, compelling me to bow, lest I dissolve into nothingness. He stood majestic, his robe cascading like a waterfall of silver, shimmering as if woven from the light of countless galaxies. His face was resplendent, too luminous to gaze upon directly, yet every feature was discernible, a harmonious blend of boundless compassion and unwavering justice, akin to a flame infused with the hues of dawn. His eyes, profound as the eternal ocean, pierced through every defense I had ever constructed, making me feel both infinitesimal and infinitely cherished. A sweet aroma, reminiscent of jasmine intertwined with the scent of burning wood, permeated the air, as if the very atmosphere was singing a hymn of worship. I prostrated myself, not out of dread, but because my soul recognized him as the creator, his power needing no validation, simply existing. When I rose, trembling, his gaze uplifted me, like a commander acknowledging a soldier chosen before time's inception. The space around us tore open, like a colossal curtain being drawn aside, revealing Earth below not as a cold orb seen from a satellite, but as a vibrant world pulsating with life, resonating with every human decision. Earth did not revolve through days and months. Instead, it appeared as an infinite network of threads, each glowing or dimming in response to human will. These threads intertwined, vibrated, and reacted, not fixed like destiny, but fluid like an unfinished masterpiece. I watched, heart pounding, as two primary timelines emerged, distinct and opposing, like light and darkness contending on a vast battlefield. The year 2025, I realized, was not an ordinary year, but a pivotal hinge upon which humanity would choose a path leading either to glory or to devastation. The first timeline shimmered, at first as fragile as a candle in the storm, but gradually growing more radiant, like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. In the economy, I saw small communities that no longer relied on massive corporations, but traded based on trust and kindness, creating sustainable prosperity. Businesses returned to the purpose of serving people, not profit, and green initiatives spread, turning deserts into fertile fields. Global politics, though still tense, began cooperating for the common good. Humble leaders listened to the voices of the people, leading to surprising peace treaties like olive branches blooming among ashes. Spiritual life in this timeline ignited not on big stages, but in living rooms, where families knelt to pray, and the light from their hearts spread like waves across the sea. I saw young people turning away from social media to seek truth, small churches filled with song, and quiet acts of kindness, a shared meal, a heartfelt apology brightening the skies. This timeline grew stronger, like a river nourished by countless small drops that never ceased to flow. The second timeline, dark and chaotic, rose at a terrifying pace, like a flood sweeping away everything. In the economy, I saw markets collapse not because of war, but because of greed and unchecked reliance on technology. Banks froze. Digital currency became a shackle, and millions lost everything, leading to riots in the streets. Global politics grew deeply divided. Nations turned their backs on one another. Alliances broke apart. Selfish leaders manipulated the crowds with lies, turning cities into battlefields of mistrust. Spiritual life in this timeline withered, drowned in the noise of technology. I saw billions of hands clinging to screens, faces empty, hearts paralyzed by lies disguised as enlightenment. The churches, though crowded, had become stages of compromise, where truth was distorted to please the masses. Influencers became prophets of disorder, calling truth hatred, while lies spread like a plague, dividing families, communities, and entire nations. Between the two timelines, I saw people standing at the crossroads, their hearts wavering. A mother chose to pray instead of arguing online, and one strand of light flared. A businessman refused a bribe, even at the cost of bankruptcy, and a flash of light broke through. But I also saw others, swept into the vortex of technology, indifferent to faith, allowing the darkness to consume their thread. Every choice, no matter how small, was like a stone thrown into a river, creating ripples that would shape the future. Jesus stood still, his eyes burning with urgency, like a call that needed no words. My heart clenched as I realized this battle was not waiting for 2025, it had already begun, silently but fiercely, in every decision humanity makes. Tears streamed down my face, not from fear, but from the weight of the mission he placed on me, to warn them, to awaken those who sleep in indifference. I knelt down, my soul shattered but remade by his love. The space around me began to fade, but the image of the two timelines, one leading to light, one sinking into darkness, remained etched within me. I understood that every word I spoke, every action I chose, was a brushstroke on the eternal canvas of 2025. Which path are you standing on? I thought silently, as a question for you, those who are listening. Choose the light, because darkness does not wait. As the radiant tapestry of the two timelines dissolved, a force seized me, not physical but spiritual, as if my soul were caught in a celestial whirlwind, spiraling toward an unseen destination. The air trembled, not with sound but with a presence so vast it felt like eternity itself exhaled, its breath heavy with purpose. I closed my eyes, instinctively shielding myself, but light pierced through my lids, radiant, unrelenting, a brilliance that burned away all shadows. When I dared to look, I stood before a throne so immense it defied comprehension, its surface blazing like diamonds ignited by 1,000 suns, each facet pulsing with divine fire. The throne was no mere object, it lived, radiating waves of shattered rainbow light that danced like rivers of molten crystal, weaving patterns of glory too intricate for mortal eyes. Thunder rolled from its core, not a roar but a deep, resonant pulse like ocean waves crashing against the cliffs of forever. A fragrance enveloped me, sweet, like roses drenched in sacred incense, yet tinged with the crisp purity of a mountain dawn, urging my soul to kneel, not in fear, but in awe of a holiness that dwarfed all I had ever known. My body trembled, reduced to a speck of dust before a storm of divine majesty, yet somehow held together by the same presence that overwhelmed me. I could not lift my gaze, my heart pounding as if it might shatter under the weight of this encounter. A voice erupted, not from the throne alone, but from every direction, vibrating through my bones, my soul, my very essence. Daniel Amber, you stand before me not to be judged, but to bear my word. It was not the voice of Jesus, whose gentle strength I had come to know, but something infinitely greater, majestic, unyielding, as if time and space bowed in submission. With every fiber of my being, I knew this was the Father, God Almighty, the Creator, whose mere whisper could unravel galaxies. My knees buckled, my mind racing with memories of nights on the battlefield, where I had doubted God's care for soldiers like me, where I had let cynicism bury my faith. Shame flooded me, intertwined with a terror that I, a flawed and broken man, was unworthy to stand in this sacred place. Yet, before despair could consume me, a gentle hand rested on my shoulder. Jesus, his presence a quiet anchor amidst the storm. His eyes, burning with a love that transcended my failures, met mine, and though he spoke no words, his touch steadied my trembling soul, reminding me of the price he had paid to make me worthy. The voice from the throne resounded again, each syllable a hammer striking the anvil of my spirit. The year 2025 is the threshold of judgment, it declared, its tone both a verdict and a warning. Humanity has piled sin upon sin, pride, idolatry, indifference to truth. Before the throne, the earth materialized, not as a distant globe but as a living entity rotating slowly, its surface marred by glowing fissures, like lava seeping from spiritual wounds. The image pulsed with the weight of countless choices, each crack a testament to humanity's rebellion. As the word pride echoed, I saw cities aglow with neon and steel, their skyscrapers piercing the heavens, not as monuments to God but as altars to human ambition. Men and women, crowned with self-proclaimed divinity, wielded technology like scepters, blind to the fragility of their towers. When idolatry resounded, I saw millions kneeling before screens, phones, monitors, holographic displays worshipping curated images, false prophets of beauty and power, while God's call faded into silence. At indifference, I saw churches standing empty, their pews abandoned, replaced by the hum of endless scrolling, prayers drowned out by the clamor of social feeds. Each sin pierced me, for I recognized my own complicity. Moments I had chosen pride over humility, distraction over devotion. Yet the voice softened, no longer thunder but a gentle rain falling on a parched desert. My mercy endures, it proclaimed, and for those who repent, the door remains open, but time is shorter than they know. Across the earth, tiny flames flickered to life, prayers whispered in secret, acts of kindness offered in obscurity, hearts turning back to God. These sparks, though small, glowed with a defiance that no darkness could extinguish, each one a promise that redemption was still within reach. Jesus took my hand, his touch warm and firm, guiding me closer to the throne, though each step felt like walking through fire, my soul trembling as if it might dissolve in the presence of such holiness. I knelt, not from fear but from the weight of a mission greater than any battle I had fought in Syria. The throne blazed brighter, its light no longer merely radiant but alive, singing a hymn of creation, and judgment that resonated in my bones. Angels materialized, not the winged figures of paintings, but beings of pure fire, their forms fluid yet resolute, each clutching a scroll that shimmered with divine decrees. Their silence was a warning, their presence a reminder that the hourglass of 2025 was nearly empty. A new scent filled the air, burning sandalwood, rich and grounding, mingling reverence with comfort, as if the throne itself exhaled both justice and grace. I felt the earth below, so small and fragile from this vantage, and a question rose unbidden from my soul. Have you ever felt unworthy of God's love? It was not just my thought, but a bridge to you, the ones who will hear this story. I, a soldier hardened by war, had felt that unworthiness, had doubted his call, yet here I stood, chosen not for my strength, but for his mercy. If he called me, he is calling you too. The voice from the throne spoke once more, its command unshakable, reverberating through the cosmos. Warn them, Daniel Amber. Truth will be the fire, and those who carry it will stand firm in 2025. A surge of strength coursed through me, as if the throne's flame had etched itself into my soul, not to consume but to empower. I was no longer just a man, I was a bearer of his word, tasked with a mission that would outlast my earthly life. Jesus stood beside me, his smile not one of camaraderie, but of a commander certain of victory. His presence was a promise that the battle, though fierce, was already won in the halls of eternity. The space around the throne began to dissolve, the radiant diamond facets fading, yet their light lingered within me, a permanent mark of this encounter. I knew the next vision, souls teetering on the edge, would demand even more of me, but I was ready, forged anew by the voice that shook the heavens. As the throne vanished, a weight settled on my shoulders, not a burden, but a mantle of responsibility. I gazed down at the earth, its fragility stark against the vastness of God's throne, and whispered a prayer, Lord, give me the courage to speak your truth. Jesus' nod was my assurance, a silent vow that he would walk with me through every trial. The year 2025 loomed, not as a mere date but as a divine threshold, and I, Daniel Amber, had been called to sound the alarm. The radiant light from the throne slowly faded, and I felt my soul being pulled into a new realm, cold and heavy. Before me was a vast abyss, pitch black as if the darkness had swallowed all hope. The wind howled through the chasm, not a natural sound, but like the cries of millions of souls blended together. I stood on a precarious cliff, my heart pounding, afraid to look down. Jesus stood beside me, peaceful yet stern, like a commander before the final battle. He pointed toward the abyss, where I began to see shadowy figures emerge, misty and vague, yet clearly writhing in pain. Millions of souls stood along the edge, each one facing a shimmering bridge of light, fragile like crystal, leading to a radiant realm in the distance. The bridge trembled under the weight of choices, and not everyone dared to step across. I looked more closely, and my heart shattered when I recognized familiar faces among the crowd of souls. Some were old comrades, men who had laughed with me in the barracks. Others were relatives, faces I'd seen at family gatherings. Each soul bore its own pain, as if clutching tightly to regrets they had never voiced. Then I saw him, Tom, the youngest soldier in my unit, the one who mocked me for reading the Bible in the tent. Tom stood there, eyes hollow, hands trembling, just steps from the bridge of light. He looked at the bridge, then down at the abyss, torn between light and darkness. I wanted to scream, to run over and pull him across, but my feet felt chained to the ground. Tom, I cried out, my voice swallowed by the howling wind. Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes sorrowful yet resolute. The choice is theirs, Daniel, he said, but your warning can lead them to the bridge. Pain surged through me, sharp as a blade, when I remembered those nights in Syria. Tom had once asked me about faith, but I had only laughed it off, afraid of being mocked. I had stayed silent when he needed the truth most, and now he stood here on the edge because of my cowardice. Tears fell, not from fear, but because I had failed him. I knelt down, begging Jesus, please save him, Lord. I'll do anything. He looked at me, his eyes like blue flames, and said, I do not force the soul, but I use voices like yours to call them. His words were a fire that burned away my despair and replaced it with resolve. I looked back at Tom, and this time I saw his memories unfold like an open book. I saw him laughing in the barracks, but I also saw the nights he sat alone, staring at a photo of his family, full of Tassar. I saw the time he asked me about God, and the disappointment in his eyes when I didn't answer. Each memory was a cut, reminding me that I had the chance to change his path. The abyss still howled, its cries now clearer like thousands of voices pleading for one more chance. I looked at the other souls, a young girl clutching a doll, an old man with a weathered face, a mother weeping for having abandoned her children. Each one stood before the bridge, but not all chose to walk. Some turned away, and the darkness consumed them, leaving behind only a scream that vanished into the depths. The bridge of light shimmered, but it was narrow, only wide enough for one soul at a time. Each step upon it caused tremors, as if truth itself was testing them. The souls who dared to cross emitted a glow, but those who faltered were pulled down by the darkness, swift as a blink. I wanted to shout at them, to say that the light was worth it, but my voice was swallowed by the wind. I turned to Jesus, my voice trembling. How can I warn them if they won't listen? He smiled, not to comfort, but to challenge. Some will not listen, but those who are chosen will recognize the truth through your words. The helplessness inside me slowly gave way to a new fire, burning brighter than ever before. I remembered the voice from the throne saying there was still time, but not much. I vowed to myself in the presence of Jesus that I would not remain silent again. Even if the world mocks me, I will speak the truth, because I never want to see another soul standing at the edge like Tom. I looked at Tom one last time, and my heart tightened as he took a step back, closer to the darkness. But then, a spark lit up in his eyes, as if he heard a distant calling. I prayed not in words, but with my entire soul, that he would choose the bridge of light. Even though I don't know Tom's fate, I knew that my mission had begun. Have you ever had a chance to speak the truth but chose silence? I thought silently, and that question now echoes to you, the one listening. I failed, Tom, but you still have a chance. I want to say, if you could save someone you love by sharing your faith, what would you do? Act now, because 2025 won't wait. The abyss began to fade, but the image of the bridge of light remained deeply etched within me. Jesus took my hand, and I felt his power flow through me. You have seen the souls standing on the Ev souls. Now be ready, for I will show you the false foundations that are about to collapse. The space around me trembled, and I knew the next vision would change me again. I walked forward, carrying the image of Tom and the millions of other souls, as a reminder that every word I speak on earth could be a bridge. The fire in my chest burned stronger, and I whispered, Lord, please use me to call them home. After witnessing the souls teetering on the edge of eternity, I believed I had plumbed the depths of divine truth. But Jesus guided me into a new vision, one that shattered the foundations I once thought unyielding, crumbling them like sand before a relentless flood. The space around me quaked, not with audible tremors, but with an invisible force, as if God's justice stirred from a long slumber, its awakening a tidal wave of holy reckoning. The earth materialized before me, not as a serene blue orb, but as a pulsating network of foundations, nations, economies, religions straining under the piercing radiance of divine light. A sharp, acrid scent, like scorched metal mingled with ash, filled the air, a harbinger of judgment that brooked no delay. Jesus stood beside me, his presence regal, like a king marshalling celestial armies for battle. His robe shimmered like a river of molten starlight, each fold rippling with the weight of eternity. His eyes, deep and fathomless, burned with a fire that blended mercy with unrelenting justice, as if he saw not only my soul, but the soul of the world itself. With a gesture of his hand, the earth's surface ignited, and hundreds of flags unfurled from the ground, rising like smoke spiraling through a tempest. I recognized the bold banners of global powers: America, China, Russia, alongside the emblems of smaller nations, yet all trembled, their roots exposed as rotten, unable to anchor them against the coming storm. My gaze settled on the United States, its skyline a beacon of pride and prosperity, yet fractured by an unseen chasm. The cities glittered with neon and glass, but their hearts lay cold, choked by greed, apathy, and a spiritual schism that tore at the nation's core. Financial markets, once heralded as invincible, quivered like brittle leaves in a gale. Trading floors dissolved into chaos, not from economic missteps, but from the sudden exposure of corruption, bursting forth like a long festering wound. Fortunes evaporated, not through market crashes alone, but through a divine unveiling of hidden dealings, leaving the mighty humbled in hours. Political leaders perched atop platforms of power, plummeted not by ballots or uprisings but by spiritual revelation. The lies they had woven, the facades of integrity they had crafted, burned away under God's light, leaving them exposed as architects of deceit. The global stage unfolded like a tattered tapestry, its threads of false alliances stitched by convenience, not truth fraying at the seams. Nations turned inward, treaties disintegrated like ash, and rulers, driven by self-interest, stoked fear to manipulate the masses, transforming vibrant cities into battlegrounds of suspicion. International summits, once symbols of unity, devolved into theaters of arrogance, where hollow rhetoric echoed, powerless to conceal the death of trust. The world's political order, built on sand, began to collapse, its fragility laid bare before the scrutiny of divine justice. Yet the deepest wound to my soul came from the falseness within the religious systems, particularly Catholicism, where I had once sought solace in us. Magnificent cathedrals rose before me, their golden domes gleaming, their sacred art dazzling, yet inside they were hollow, like whitewashed tombs masking decay. Priests and bishops, cloaked in vestments of authority, stood at pulpits, but their words dripped with compromise, diluted to appease worldly culture, rather than proclaim the unyielding truth of the gospel. Doctrines once sacred were twisted to fit modern sensibilities. Sacraments, meant to be channels of grace, became mere rituals, performed without reverence. Prayers, which should have been cries to heaven, were wielded as tools of manipulation, empty of heart. This hypocrisy was not confined to the clergy, it permeated the laity. I saw Catholics filling pews on Sundays, their voices raised in hymns, yet their lives mirrored the world's, indifferent to the poor, chasing status, silent in the face of injustice. Parish groups, meant to foster faith, devolved into power struggles, turning churches into social clubs where prestige trumped piety. Those most desperate for Christ's love, widows, orphans, the broken, were left at the gates, ignored by communities too preoccupied with their own agendas. These structures, once proud to be beacons of light, buckled from within, their foundations of pride and compromise, unable to withstand the refining fire of God's judgment, collapsing like sandcastles before a tsunami. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, not from fear but from the searing realization that I too had contributed to this falseness. I had sat through masses with a distracted heart, stayed silent when truth demanded a voice, and let convenience dull my faith. My soul lay bare before the light of Jesus' gaze, trembling as if stripped of all defenses, yet he did not condemn. His eyes, burning with a call to awaken, held me steady, a silent promise that redemption was possible for those who were Jews. The vision shifted, and amidst the ruins of these false foundations, I saw flickers of light, small, almost imperceptible, yet unyielding. These were communities of true faith, gathering not in grand cathedrals but in humble places, weathered homes, hidden caves, even abandoned barns. They had no platforms, no spotlights, but their prayers unleashed a spiritual roar, like a lion's, shaking the edifices of pride to their core. I saw a group in Africa, kneeling beneath a gnarled acacia tree, their whispered prayers weaving a light that healed an entire village, sickened by despair. In Asia, a family shared their meager meal with the homeless, and from that act, a flame ignited, spreading hope through a city shrouded in apathy. These communities, though few in number, carried the fire of truth, untainted by ambition or the lure of recognition. Their lives embodied the gospel not in eloquent sermons but in quiet sacrifices, in love that cost them everything. They were like ancient oaks, their roots sunk deep into the soil of God's justice and mercy, unshaken by the storms of 2025. Hope surged within me, a tide rising against the grief of the church's division. God did not need towering basilicas or roaring crowds, he needed hearts ablaze with faith, willing to pay the price for truth. Jesus stood motionless, his eyes a blazing mandate, imprinting a mission on my soul that I could not refuse. I understood that 2025 would test every false thing, empires of wealth, thrones of power, and sanctuaries of hypocrisy. Only what was rooted in God's foundation, justice, mercy, and unwavering faith would endure. The weight of this truth pressed upon me, not as a burden but as a call to action, a fire kindling within my spirit. What are you building? I thought, the question reaching out to you, the one reading these words. A tower destined to crumble, or a flame that will burn through eternity? The vision began to fade, but the image of collapsing facade and resilient communities remained etched in my soul, a stark reminder of the choice before us all. I stepped forward, carrying the mantle of my mission, resolved to warn the world, cling not to what shakes, build what is eternal. The year 2025 loomed not as a storm, but as a divine reckoning, and only those anchored in truth would stand firm. My heart, once heavy with shame, now burned with purpose, ready to call others to the fire that could not be quenched. After witnessing the collapse of false foundations and the suffocating veil of technological deception, I believed I had seen the full expanse of the spiritual battlefield, but Jesus led me into a vision that unveiled a hidden army, radiant with an indomitable light. The space around me pulsed, not with sound but with a warm, living presence, as if the heartbeat of heaven itself reverberated, whispering the names of those overlooked by the world. The earth unfolded before me, not as a mosaic of glittering cities or glowing screens, but as a canvas illuminated by the lives of humble souls, scattered across continents like stars piercing a moonless night. A fragrance enveloped me, gentle, like freshly cut grass laced with sacred incense, rising as a testament to their faithfulness, a silent offering to the throne of God. Jesus stood beside me, his presence that of a commander surveying a clandestine legion, his robe shimmering like a river of molten starlight, each fold rippling with divine purpose. His eyes, deep and boundless, held a love so fierce it could ignite souls and a power so unshakable it could silence storms. With a sweep of his hand, the vision sharpened, and I saw them heaven's anonymous warriors, not heralded preachers or celebrated influencers, but ordinary people dwelling in the quiet spaces between obscurity and eternity. They were janitors sweeping hospital corridors at midnight, nurses tending to the forgotten, widows praying by candlelight, teenagers defying the pull of the crowd, prisoners singing hymns in dank cells, and mothers whispering the gospel in secret. Each bore a spiritual mark, invisible to human eyes but blazing in the courts of heaven, a seal etched into their hearts that pulsed with loyalty, obedience, and an unyielding devotion to truth. My heart pounded, awe struck, as I realized these warriors moved not for applause or ambition, but by a sacred calling, as if trained in the silent crucible of faith, forged for the decisive battle of 2025. I saw a janitor in Brazil, his hands rough from years of labor, pausing his broom to kneel in a shadowed hospital corner, his whispered prayer a spark that ignited a wave of light, banishing despair from a patient clinging to life. The radiance from his faith rippled outward, a beacon in the sterile darkness, restoring hope where none remained. In Nigeria, a nurse, weary from an endless shift, leaned over a dying child, her soft prayer a thread of light that wove through the room, calming frantic hearts and bringing peace to an entire ward. Her quiet act, unseen by the world, shone like a star in heaven's ledger, a testament to the power of a single faithful soul. A widow in Eastern Europe, her face lined with grief, knelt in a crumbling cottage, praying for her scattered family. Each word she uttered was a flaming arrow, piercing the dark timelines I had seen, sowing seeds of revival in a community shrouded in apathy. Her prayers, though spoken in solitude, resounded in eternity, shifting the course of generations. I saw a teenager in America standing alone in a schoolyard, his peers mocking his faith, yet he held firm, his resolve a lighthouse guiding others back to God. His courage, unnoticed by the world, blazed in the spiritual realm, drawing lost souls like moths to a flame. In Asia, a prisoner, confined to a claustrophobic cell, sang hymns through cracked lips, defying threats of punishment. His voice, frail yet resolute, unleashed a spiritual earthquake, crumbling the darkness within the prison walls and planting hope in the hearts of fellow captives. A woman in the Middle East, her life unremarkable to the world, shared the gospel with neighbors under the cover of night, her words like seeds scattered in a desert, sprouting into a hidden community of believers. Each act, each prayer, each sacrifice was a stroke on the canvas of eternity, painting a future where truth prevailed. These warriors sought no recognition, feared no rejection, and remained untouched by the world's fleeting comforts. They had honed their spirits in silence, learning to hear God's voice in the stillness of solitary moments, when no eyes but His watched. Their prayers were not mere words, but weapons of divine precision, each one a strike against the forces of darkness. As they knelt, I saw shockwaves ripple through the timelines of 2025, the same timelines I had witnessed splitting into light and shadow. Darkness recoiled, scorched by their light, deception dissolved, unable to withstand their truth. Angels, clad in armor that gleamed like molten gold, descended like lightning, answering these fervent cries with swift, unstoppable action, their movements a symphony of divine response. My soul trembled, not from fear but from the weight of revelation. The battle of 2025 would not be won by those with platforms or power, but by these anonymous warriors whose hearts carried the divine order of God. They were invisible to the enemy, their motives pure, driven not by ambition but by a sacred mission. Like unquenchable flames in a tempest, they burned bright, their faithfulness a shield no evil could breach. I watched as darkness sought them, probing for weaknesses, only to falter, repelled by the radiant barrier of their devotion. Jesus turned to me, His eyes a gentle fire that burned away my doubts while beckoning me to join their ranks. A warmth surged through my chest, as if a spiritual seal were being carved into my soul, not a badge of honor, but a commission, a call to carry their fire. I was no longer merely Daniel Amber, the soldier who fought in Syria's deserts. I was a messenger, tasked with awakening others still hidden, waiting for God's summons to rise. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, not from fear but from the honor of standing among these nameless yet unconquerable souls, and from the weight of a mission that transcended my earthly battles. The vision began to fade, but the faces of these warriors, the janitor, the nurse, the widow, the teenager, the prisoner, the mother, remained etched in my spirit, a living testament that true power lies not in spotlights or megaphones but in hearts ablaze with faith. Their prayers, their sacrifices, their quiet defiance were the sparks that would ignite the revival of 2025, reshaping eternity one soul at a time. I felt the seal within me burn brighter, a flame that could not be extinguished, urging me to call others from the shadows to join this unseen army. Are you among the hidden, waiting for God's call? I thought, the question reaching out to you, the one reading these words. I was a soldier who doubted, yet He chose me. Rise, for 2025 calls for warriors like you. I stepped forward, the fire of His seal coursing through me, a new strength anchoring my spirit. The battle had begun, but I knew the anonymous warriors of heaven, through their prayers and unwavering loyalty, held the power to shift the tides of eternity. The fragrance of their faith lingered, a reminder that no act of devotion is too small to change the world. With every step, I vowed to sound the call, to rally the hidden ones, and to light the path before the threshold of 2025 arrived. After witnessing the collapse of hollow foundations and the rise of heaven's hidden warriors, I believed I had seen the full face of deception. But Jesus led me deeper into a vision that unveiled a more subtle, suffocating veil, one spun from the very technology humanity celebrated. The space around me trembled not with sound, but with a chilling stillness, as if the soul of the world were being slowly strangled. The earth appeared before me, not vibrant and alive, but as a tangled web of glowing screens, phones, tablets, billboards, augmented reality lenses, and sleek neural implants embedded across nations. The air reeked of burning plastic and scorched metal, a bitter warning of a dependence that now consumed humanity's spirit. Beside me stood Jesus, majestic, resolute. His robe shimmered with light like falling stars, and His eyes blazed with mercy and righteous fire. With a single motion, he revealed a deeper layer of the vision. Billions of people, from vast cities to forgotten villages, bowed before their screens. They weren't mindless but paralyzed. Their eyes were vacant, hearts starved for truth, yet minds absorbed by algorithms designed to dominate the soul. A chill ran through me. This wasn't simple distraction, it was worship. Curated feeds, filtered selfies, and choreographed videos had become modern idols. The golden calves of ancient times had returned, now digitized into fleeting pixels. False prophets, crafted by AI with smooth voices and logical eloquence, preached a message of comfort without conviction. Their gospel required no repentance, no cross, no transformation, only passive consumption. Virtual Christs flickered across screens, their faces familiar and warm, but their eyes hollow, promising peace without sacrifice, salvation without surrender. I saw Christians, once devoted in prayer and scripture, now entranced by influencers, trading eternal wisdom for fleeting trends. They sought divine revelation in viral videos, abandoning the quiet intimacy where God's whisper is heard. Many churches, once sanctuaries of truth, had become stages of entertainment. Sermons soothed instead of pierced, the sacred diluted to gain approval and applause. Nations built vast surveillance networks, cameras on every street, implants tracking thoughts and actions presented under the guise of safety and unity. But beneath the surface was control, not through force, but through voluntary submission. Humanity was handing over its freedom in exchange for convenience. Children were raised by screens, their minds molded by stories written in machine code. Truth became fluid, history rewritten, morality dictated by algorithms. A generation arose unmoored from God's word, taught that reality could be curated like a playlist. My soul trembled as I recognized my own compromise. I had scrolled endlessly, filled silences meant for prayer with digital noise, and allowed the hum of technology to drown the still, small voice of heaven. I fell to my knees, tears streaming not from fear, but clarity. The deception hadn't just touched the world, it had reached me too. Yet Jesus did not turn away. His eyes like gentle fire burned through my shame and invited me to rise, to awaken, to choose truth over the comfort of screens. Suddenly the vision shifted. Amidst the blinding sea of digital light, I saw glimmers, small, defiant flames. A young man in a dim room deleted his social accounts and opened a tattered Bible. As he prayed, a glow radiated from him, stirring his family to faith. A woman in a bustling city removed her neural device, looked to the unfiltered sky, and whispered a prayer, her words sparking light that spread through her neighborhood. A teacher stood firm, refusing to teach scripted lies. Her courage ignited her students' hearts, leading them to seek what was real. These acts, small in the world's eyes, were mighty in heaven, each one a hammer strike against the veil of deception. Across continents I saw others, a doctor in Europe who refused surveillance implants, her integrity unshaken, an artist in South America painting Christ's story on forgotten walls, every brushstroke an act of defiance, teenagers in Australia singing hymns in a public park, their voices rising above mockery like a clarion call to the lost. They were not famous, but they were fearless. Their obedience pierced the darkness like stars scattered across a moonless sky. Jesus stood silent, his gaze pressing a mission into my spirit. This was not fate, but a test. The technological deception of 2025 would not be enforced with weapons, but with comfort. Would humanity choose truth or trade it for convenience? My soul burned anew. I had been called not just to see, but to speak, to warn. Do not let screens steal your soul. Do not let artificial voices drown out the voice of God. The vision faded, but its contrast remained vivid in my memory, the cold glow of deception and the warm fire of truth. I stepped forward, heart ablaze, more certain than ever of the task before me. And now I ask you, the one reading this, are you caught in the veil? I was. I was a soldier seduced by distraction, but God called me, and He is calling you. Rise, break the chains, choose truth. 2025 will not forgive indifference. The scent of burnt metal lingers in my mind as a warning, but the fire in me burns brighter, fueled by the truth, that one awakened soul can pierce the darkness. I will sound the alarm. I will call the sleepers. And I will light the path before this year closes. After the flood of visions, empires collapsing, the church divided, the suffocating grip of advancing technology, a single question ignited in the ashes of all I had witnessed. It burned in my soul like an ember refusing to die. How could one fragile, fleeting life possibly matter in the face of such immense, eternal warfare? The weight of it pressed against my spirit, demanding an answer amid the divine revelations that had forever changed my understanding of time, truth, and eternity. Then Jesus stood before me. His presence was not merely light, it was anchor, unwavering in the trembling brilliance of heaven. His robe shimmered like flowing starlight, each fold pulsing with the victory already won. His eyes, endless and deep like the cosmos, yet warmer than the hearth of a winter home, looked into me, not through me, and in that gaze, all my facades fell away. I stood naked in soul, yet unafraid, caught in the gravity of a love so pure it unraveled all fear. The air was alive with a scent I cannot forget, wild honey, mingled with sacred myrrh, a fragrance that clung to my heart, like a whispered invitation to surrender, not from fear, but from awe. Around us, the atmosphere trembled not with noise, but with the presence of something unseen, as though eternity itself paused to witness what would come next. Jesus lifted his hand, and from nothing, a single flame came to life, small, quiet. It hung suspended like a lone star drawn down from the heavens. It did not roar, it did not rage, but the shadows around it recoiled in reverence. That little flame bore an authority beyond comprehension. It descended into a sea of shadow, and where it landed, the darkness gave way, not entirely gone, but pierced. A modest circle of light was formed, quiet yet unyielding. It did not shine for crowds. It illuminated no monuments. And yet, it endured. That flame spoke of a power that needed no spectacle. Then, another spark flickered. Then another. And another. Each small, defiant, glowing in the dark like stars breaking through a storm. Gradually, the lights moved toward each other. Their halos merged, and the darkness began to crack, literally to fracture, under the weight of their collective glow, as if glass were shattering in slow motion. The vision widened. I saw the source of each flame, ordinary lives, hidden from headlines, but ablaze in heaven. An old man in a rural hut, rising before dawn for 50 years of prayer. His prayers stopped suicides, saved lives, sparked revival. A single mother, scorned for her faith, taught her children about God with quiet devotion. One of them would grow up to translate the Bible into a forbidden language, unlocking salvation for millions. A prisoner, wrongly convicted, forgave his betrayer. That forgiveness ignited faith in an entire cell block. These stories, unnoticed by the world, were earthquakes in eternity. Teachers defying pressure to whisper truth. Widows giving their last coin. Farmers sowing seed and faith with equal reverence. Every act, no matter how small, was a flame, linking with others in a constellation no darkness could consume. And I realized greatness in heaven isn't measured by size but by surrender, not by applause but by obedience. Jesus came closer and placed his hand on my shoulder. Fire and peace flowed into me. It wasn't a reward. It was a calling. I was no longer just Daniel Amber, a soldier scarred by war. I was a herald, entrusted to awaken others, to tell them that one life, fully surrendered, could tip the balance of eternity. I saw Earth below -2025 loomed, not with spectacle, but with struggle. And it would be the obedient, the quiet, faithful, invisible ones who would hold the line. Their prayers, their kindness, their unwavering truth. I dropped to my knees, weeping not from fear, but from the overwhelming honor. And still that fragrance of honey and myrrh lingered, testifying that every small act of obedience was a holy offering rising to the throne. Jesus did not speak, but his eyes blazed with purpose. That was the commission. I stepped forward, the fire within me alive. 2025 was not just a year. It was a battle, and I was the flame called to light the way. The visions of collapsing empires, splintered churches, deceptive technologies, and flickering flames of obedience had carved themselves into the depths of my soul. They didn't simply haunt me, they branded me. I stood trembling in the radiant courts of heaven, overwhelmed not by fear, but by a sacred urgency. And then, just as the final echo of Jesus' voice faded like the last note of a heavenly anthem, something gripped me, a power both familiar and terrifying. It pulled at me with divine clarity, not like a gentle breeze calling me home, but like a relentless current dragging me back into the broken world I had left. It was a commission, not a choice. I was to return, to speak, to burn with truth. In a single, searing instant, eternity folded and I was torn from heaven's embrace. One heartbeat I was surrounded by celestial light, fragrant with myrrh and eternity. The next I was gasping in a storm of ash and heat. My spirit slammed into flesh, and I awoke choking on dust and smoke, sprawled in the rubble, left behind by a drone strike, the very blast that had killed me. Around me, chaos reigned. The earth was scorched, mangled metal littered the landscape, and fire danced through the wreckage like mocking spirits. The stench of burning fuel and blood clawed at my senses. My ears screamed with a shrill ringing, and my eyes struggled to focus blurring outlines into smears of horror. Yet through that haze, I saw them, figures rushing toward me, silhouetted against the firelight. I heard someone cry out that I was alive, that I shouldn't be. Rough hands lifted me, urgent yet cautious. Pain surged through every nerve, but it was not the pain of flesh that consumed me. There was something deeper, an unquenchable blaze in my chest, not from the blast. This was holy fire, the seal of the commission, the mark of Jesus' command, alive within me. That fire held visions too heavy for words, glimpses of 2025, of the reckoning to come. I couldn't explain it, not in sermons, nor creeds, nor human language, but the fire itself was the message. It pulsed with warning and hope, burning hotter than any earthly flame. A nurse hovered over me, her face pale and wide-eyed. I tried to speak. My lips were cracked and trembling, but I forced the words out. A broken whisper, raw and heavy, slipped past my lips. Her eyes flickered. Something in her recognized the weight of what I said, even if her mind could not yet understand. They lifted me onto a stretcher. The thrum of helicopter blades shook the air as I looked skyward, past the smoke, to where one lone star pierced the gloom. In that moment I made a vow, not in words but in the fire that surged within me. My mission had begun. As the helicopter rose, the battlefield fell away, a scar on the earth mirroring the greater war one now understood. I was no longer a soldier of nations. I had been remade into a herald of heaven. The year 2025 was no longer some future date, it was the edge of a precipice. A line drawn by God himself, where truth and deception would meet in final collision. I saw it all again in my mind, nations crumbling under false glory, churches fractured by comfort, screens lacing the world in illusion, and yet small flames, ordinary people obeying in silence, lighting the dark. These were heaven's remnant, and I was one of them. Jesus' presence was no longer visible, but I could feel the seal of his call pressed into my soul. I was not alone. And I knew with unwavering certainty that the fire would lead me not just to speak, but to awaken others. The question remains not for me, but for you. Will you carry the flame before the shaking begins? The letter from Daniel Amber has concluded, but its warning still reverberates like a trumpet in the distance. The year 2025 is not just another moment in time, it is a turning point. Each follower of Christ will face a choice that cannot be delayed. Will you choose what is easy or what is eternal? Will you follow the comfort of the crowd or carry the weight of the cross? This is not the hour to hide behind religious routines or blend into political trends. The days of casual Christianity are over. Jesus made it clear those who will shine with his light in 2025 are those who kneel before him in surrender now. So I ask you, friend, will you obey when obedience costs you comfort? Will you speak truth when silence would be safer? Will you walk away from the world's applause to step fully into your God-given assignment? If you feel the stirring of the Holy Spirit, we invite you to partner with us. Click the Super Thanks button, the heart icon beneath the video and sow a seed of support. Whether your gift is small or large, every act of faith echoes in eternity. Your generosity helps us reach both the hidden and the hurting with messages of light, warning, and hope. From remote villages to crowded cities, together we are sounding the alarm. Thank you. May God bless you richly as you walk in bold obedience.